until the end of the line. And I will be your flower if you will be the bee. And I promise I will always give you the sweetest parts of me. 'Cause you're the tip to my top, the key to my lock, you're my breakfast in the morning. You're my up to my down and the king of my crown. And you're everything I want. You got that sweet, sweet, sweet honey. Sugar, and I want it sweet, sweet honey. You got that sweet, sweet honey. Sugar, and I want it sweet, sweet, sweet honey. So give it to me.
Because of all the things we're paying for out of pocket that other countries pay for with taxes. Because here's how the system works. The basic tax proposition is simple. You pay taxes to the government in the form of the money. The government pools that money and uses it to provide the people with essential goods and services that they need. That would be efficient, but there's one catch. We can't do it that way because getting anything directly from the government or through cost-controlled industries would be considered socialism. There's a big discussion of whether the thunderclap should come after socialism or before socialism. And I thought, let's try it before, because I'm an old man and I don't know where I am.
Always love me some Jon Stewart, my word. Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and this is a 2 for Tuesday. You are on the first of 2 streams today. How are you? How you doing out there? Anti-corporatist, hello. Wicked Foxy Dragon, good to see you. Oh, we got a fun one. Rustbox, good to see you. Yeah, we got a couple of fun ones. First of all, Rex Trek, hello. Tamara Chance, hello. And yes, I'm pinning that message right there. We got a Facebook group, y'all. Stop on by. It's a lot of fun. Wicked Foxy Dragon, she's set it up. She's running it. It tickles me to no end. It makes me very happy. Glad to know that this sort of thing has enough interest that it's spreading around. And by the way, kind of inspired me. I don't want to do anything that I'm not truly behind, and I don't want to astroturf anything. I think sort of the appeal of this show is that you see the guts of it, the whole thing. So if I'm working on something, it's going to be the show. And if you want to be the official social media account for Wicked in some capacity, start one. I'll look it over. As long as you're not lying to folks, it'll get the hominis dominus, and I will pop in at your request, happily so. let's try it out. Yeah, if you find yourself on Instagram or TikTok or whatever quite a lot, I'll make content for you and you do what you please with it. And if you can find a way to make a dime for yourself while doing it, you have my blessing. But in the meantime, this is where Wicked exists, right here on YouTube, soon to be Twitch, and various streaming services as I get more familiar with OBS and don't crash the stream. We got a super fun one today. Bit humorous, a bit sad, and very educational. I want to start it off with talking about a gag that got out of hand, and I think y'all will appreciate this. It's a good learning moment, whether you fell for it or not. And I'll tell you, and I'm going to say it multiple times throughout this piece, don't feel bad if you fell for it, because a lot of folks did. But it is a little funny, because it's supposed to be. You may have heard that there was a video going around towards the beginning of the month wherein it claimed that Disney was making its next generation of child stars in a laboratory. Now, if that seems fantastical to you, it's because it is. It was a joke. It was a joke by an outfit called The Onion. The Onion, if you don't know, they're a satirical news organization. They do gag reports, which are meant to make light of things that we actually experience. Like Disney is, like all corporations, a soulless entity, and I wouldn't put it past them. If it were cheaper to grow a child star in a lab, I'm sure they would do it. But it was a joke, and it was never meant to be taken seriously, and yet a whole bunch of people did end up thinking it was real and shared it around as though it was real. Let's have a look at specifically what I'm talking about.
If you have kids at home, this next segment is for you. This Friday, the newest batch of Disney Channel stars grown in the Disney Genetic Engineering Lab will be unveiled to the public.
Right. Now, Tracy, most of our viewers are already familiar with a lot of the products that have come out of the Disney Lab. Yes. But how exactly do you create a Hilary Duff or a Miley Cyrus from scratch?
Right.
Well, we're going to find out exactly how it's done right now, because joining us live from the Disney Lab is one of their lead geneticists, Dr. Andrew Rourke. Welcome, Dr. Rourke. There's quite an operation you've got going on out there.
Thanks, Jim.
So the stars
Okay, so first up, before you heckle people too much, remember, this is designed to look real. It's not supposed to actually be tricking people, because people are supposed to be watching it, understanding that it's The Onion, and The Onion is a satirical news organization. It's like Weekend Update with Saturday Night Live. And you are supposed to be clued in by the fact that it's a ridiculous notion. You're supposed to be clued in by the fact that, say, Hilary Duff has parents. But credit where it's due. This looks, at a glance, it's got the normal news B-roll. It's got the news format. It's got a couple generic news-looking folks behind it. So, if you fell for this, if you thought this was real, don't feel too bad. I have questions for you that I think you should mull over, but don't feel too bad. If, however, you knew what The Onion was already, then you get a special bit of enjoyment here.
that we see on TV are actually grown right here?
That's correct. They're grown and developed here. We engineer their brains for advanced singing and dancing capabilities, even posing for photos. By the time they grow to desired size, these child stars are fully ready for the camera or the concert tours or whatever Disney chooses to put them in.
That is simply amazing.
I love the B-roll of the actress training in expressions. Here's the thing. It also feels real. right? Like, if you were to tell me that Hillary Duff goes home at the end of the day and just stares blankly at the wall, I might believe it. Like, I probably wouldn't believe it, but I might, is the thing. Because we live in a world that feels very plastic. If you're laughing at this, bear in mind, today, if I have this correct, today we found out the first lab-grown meat is rolling out. Your old pal Jake might get to eat burgers again because, I mean, it was chicken cell lines, but still, my whole beef with eating meat is that I don't want anything to die so that I can have a meal. I don't ask you to be the same way. It's a personal foible. But the point is, that's some sci-fi stuff right there, isn't it? AI is a big damn deal. It's faking personalities out there on the internet. Is it a stretch to get to this from that? Yes. But it ain't as much of a stretch as it used to be. And if you grew up in a world pre-cell phones, a hell of a lot's changed real fast. I'm just saying have a bit of sympathy. But we do have to talk about why this started happening. Because the Onion's been around for a long time, and there's a twist on this story.
Now, how long does it take to actually create a star from scratch?
Well, not very long at all. We use the exact same DNA structure for all of our stars, and then we simply tweak minor details like hair color or skin tone.
Right, yeah, we do have some footage here of some of the well-known creations that have come out of your lab. Let's take a look.
Yes, well, that's model 6831-A, publicly known as Mitchell Musso, standard male base with a type 3 skin pigmentation.
Wow.
And that's model 6831-B. We give him slightly thicker eyebrows and type 5 skin.
Well, so it's sort of like putting a puzzle together there.
Exactly, exactly.
Amazing.
Okay, here we've got some of the images of some of the newest models. We're going to be seeing a lot of these kids in the
It
future.
really looks like you have someone for every kid in America to love
Well, that's
here.
the idea, Tracy. Our writers find it very liberating. For example, our new model, Haley, is a singing, dancing, snowboarding, half Japanese, half Indian girl.
Wow.
Now, finding her in reality would be impossible.
Right, but sounds like a surefire hit to me. Oh, now this one's Zac Efron. I've seen him before.
Yes, Zach was actually one of our earliest
My
models.
daughters love him.
Okay, now to be fair, Zac Efron was grown in the lab. He's just, it wasn't a Disney-sponsored thing. I think it was a failed experiment from Blackwater.
I mean, he looks so real.
Actually, I think we could have done a better job with Zach. He could show more human tendencies.
Sure.
If you look closely, you'll notice there's a certain deadness around the eyes.
I do see that, yes.
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to watch because all I see is all my mistakes.
Yeah.
Boy, he seems flawless to me.
Well, he's holding up, but there was a bug in that first batch, and as a result, Zach's skin will soon begin to dissolve.
No, poor Zac Efron.
All right, well, it's simply amazing. Dr. Rourke, thank you so much for coming in and spending some of your morning
Relevance
with us. I
expectancy.
can't wait to see some of these new
Absolutely.
creations popping out of the lab.
Oh, delightful. Okay, so we can have a chuckle now. We understand that it was a satirical thing. But it got shared around as though it was real, and people were concerned about this. I'm assuming most people that watched it, and if you fell for it, don't feel bad. But I'm assuming most people that watched it only saw the headline and thought, oh my God, it's happening. Here's the twist. That particular piece of media came out in 2008. Let's look at the debunking of it. I mean, so look, you're not alone. If you fell for this, you're not alone. If somebody posited this to you like it's a real thing, guess what? So many people believed it was real. Reuters did an article about it. Fact check. The Onion video of Disney stars grown in a genetic engineering lab taken seriously. A video shared on social media shows a TV interview with a geneticist at Disney Labs who says, yeah, we saw all that. Here it is. A Facebook user sharing the video with 14,000 views said that Disney grows their stars in a lab and the truth is in your face. You just don't want to believe it. Another Facebook user shared a similar claim, saying, did y'all see that Disney is creating their next child stars in labs, genetically engineered child stars? Some users appear to be taking the video seriously, with comments saying, "Who didn't know this? They've been making them since '59." Oof. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these executives are actually buying children and grooming them to be stars and further push their trifling agendas. Now, see right there. There it is. That second person. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these executives are actually buying children and grooming them to be stars. Now, see, that person seems to understand that the video itself is not real, but they nonetheless contribute to the problem. They're muddying the waters, and they're putting a different conspiracy in there. And we saw the video. They go on to explain it. Just to be absolutely clear, as explained by the U.S. Library of Congress, The Onion is an American satirical digital media company and newspaper organization. Satirical. Joking. Not real. So the question is that you got to ask yourself, how do you stop yourself in the future from having this same thing happen? If you believed it now, why did you believe it? Probably because somebody told you it was true in their post. It started with somebody saying, "Did you see this? This is true." So you're set up to believe it. I would say, first and foremost, the account that did that, you should block. You should block that account. They lied to you. They either didn't look at this themselves before sharing it and saying it was true, in which case you can't trust them, or they did look at it, they didn't care what was inside it, and they lied to you intentionally, in which case you shouldn't trust them. Block that account. They are liars. You cannot trust anything they have to say. A great way to make sure you get less misinformation in your inbox is, as soon as somebody shows themselves to be a liar, to be unworthy of your trust, it's not your fault, it's their fault. Your trust has worth, and that worth is greater than them. Block that account. Now, this is the hard thing that I'm going to ask you to do. Look at some of the other things you believe, perhaps that you first saw on this platform, and ask yourself if that might also not be true. And unfortunately, this is going to hurt to hear, but unfortunately, it will be some of the most interesting things you believe. And there's a reason for that. They're not gonna waste their time trying to trick you with a boring story. They're going to make an attention-grabbing story. Great way to tell if you're looking at disinformation is to ask yourself the question, if this is so interesting, why am I only hearing about it here? You don't have to have faith in media organizations. In fact, go the opposite. Trust that they will do anything to make a buck. If it was that interesting, I promise you, having worked for these devils myself, they're going to tell you about it, because they don't make their money by some mega corporation giving them $1 billion secretly under the table to keep something quiet. That ain't how it works. They are the mega corporations. And yes, that has its own problems. But they make money when you click on their articles. That's even though they have advertisers that, yes, they wouldn't want to anger. They want to please those advertisers by getting a lot of clicks. And if there was a story about Disney growing child stars in labs, I assure you, they would try to profit off that. Toot sweet. Similarly, when you hear somebody telling you something that's a little bit more, feels like it's not in the realm of sci-fi, like, the pharmaceutical companies figured out how to cure cancer, but they keep it from you. They hide it from you because it makes them more money to treat cancer with chemotherapy. Look, the logic doesn't hold up when you consider the fact that the first pharmaceutical company to patent a cure for cancer will instantly have trillions of dollars. That they would eat each other like fighting fish in a tank. The logic doesn't hold up. How about the fact that cancer will crop up in people forever, always? So long as we have cells that divide, we will have some that become cancerous. So if you have a cure for cancer, you're still going to get to sell it to folks multiple times. And by the way, if people believe that they can abuse their bodies and just take a pill to get rid of the cancer, you better believe they're going to abuse their bodies more. And it fails the same test. If it were true, if you found out about it, you who does not most likely look this stuff up for a living, actually interview the people involved for a living, if you found out about it, why didn't other news organizations find out about it? So, before you share something like this, before you even commit to believing something like this, wait a day. If you saw this in the morning, you better believe it's going to be, if it's that interesting, if it strikes you as something that is really fascinating, wait a day. Because if you saw it in the morning, it will be in the evening news. Just try that out. And again, don't feel bad for falling for this. If you didn't know what The Onion is, well, even if you did know what The Onion is, this was a section of The Onion that was designed to look like a Today Show. It's designed to look like the news. But it is also not intended to trick you. So if you fell for it, that means somebody took it and intentionally, most likely, or just damn irresponsibly, somebody took it and used it to tell you a lie. And a question to mull over maybe for later is, why did they want to lie to you? Worth thinking about. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. John Bailey, it's amazing that people believe that nonsense. Yeah, but I see how it happens. If color in quickly, and you can kind of see how it happens. Color in the details. You just look at a headline. You maybe don't hear the part about Zac Efron. You don't watch the whole thing because you only see the headline. Somebody already said it was true. It all looks on the up and up. You maybe watch the first 30 seconds of video. They have B-roll. It looks like somebody walked through a lab, and you don't follow science all that closely. In the 90s, we cloned a sheep. I can see how it happens. Now, maybe 999 people out of 100 have heard of The Onion or just take 5 minutes to look at it closely. But that 1 in 1,000 person, maybe they were already having a weird day. And it just catches them at the right moment where they go, Jesus Christ, now this? It can happen. It's more important that people develop the skills to learn how to identify this stuff generally. And these sorts of problems will take care of themselves. Wicked Foxy Dragon. Doesn't matter. The older the information, the more they think it's real. Sure, except if there was a show talking about how these folks are grown in a lab, surely there would have been interviews with them talking about these experiences by now. Surely Zac Efron would have deteriorated by now, although maybe he did. I haven't checked in on Zac Efron. Folks, check in on Zac Efron for me. Make sure he hasn't disintegrated. Wireless Mike, I've never fallen for an Onion article. That's not a high bar, I know, but fair enough. Mars Falcon, that's the question, Wicked Foxy Dragon. Is it near impossible to differentiate the genuinely gullible from the knowing liars and hacks? John Bailey, Newsmax would probably headline the Disney story. Yeah. Going back to the genuine liars and hacks in a moment. Mars Falcon, satire and parody are treacherous things nowadays. People believe such absurdities that they come off as cartoonish. Yeah. So here's the deal. If to Mars Falcon, when you're talking about the genuinely gullible and the knowing liars and hacks, the person who got the 14,000 clicks, that's probably the knowing liar. If you fall for something, most likely you didn't have a plan to profit off of it. But if you find yourself profiting off a thing, well, gosh, most likely you know what it is. Not always. But an easy way to tell who's who in this mess is to see who's benefiting from it. Simply because the person who understands it better has a plan for it. It's sad. It's sad that people do that. And you're quite right, Mars Falcon. Satire and parody are definitely treacherous things these days. However, on the upside, I expect we will see a return to it as people develop an appreciation for the types of skills necessary to tell truth from fiction. I think those days are coming again, which is good. I miss them. Personal favorite, Naked Gun. Do you guys remember that? Ooh, mercy me. That was the best. Frank Drebin was a childhood... What am I saying, childhood? He's a current hero of mine. For those of us that grew up loving James Bond but were realistic about our own skill sets, you got Drebin. Ooh, let me interact with this a little bit more. Nope, not that. Well, gosh, that's... Give me just a second, folks. I'm setting up the next segment here. But she's a little bit off. There we are. Beautiful. All right, so I'd like to talk about now the darker side of this. What is all this stuff, all this misinformation leading to? Look, there is a reason we have. Hell, this is a good intro. We're gonna use it. But there's a reason this is propagating the way it is, particularly these days. There is a reason that it's hard to tell satire from real life these days. There's a reason that nobody trusts, or rather very few people trust, official sources, and that government has people have such low confidence in it. There's been a definite effort by government folks to make the American people not trust what is happening in front of their eyes, to not trust reporting, to not trust scientists, intellectuals, to not trust so much of what they see. And the crazy thing is, so long as they are allowed to keep doing this, even we, those who I like to think are working hard against it, you, me, we're going to contribute to the problem. Because when we debunk, say, a Jordan Peterson or a Tim Pool, which, by the way, great job, Emma Vigeland, on her appearance on the Culture War. But when we debunk those folks, it doesn't leave them thinking, the lefties must be right. It leaves them thinking, and this is by design, everybody's lying to me. So where does that effort originate? Tom Hartman talked about it, and it's very, very Sad.
DepartmentReport.com is titled GOP, how dare you tell the truth? And it's about a series of articles that have been published in both the Washington Post and the New York Times over the last 3 weeks, tracking down or showing how researchers who are looking into lies and disinformation are now themselves being, in the crosshairs. They are the targets of lawsuits and congressional action designed to basically intimidate them and shut them up. I start out with the story of Starbird, Kate Starbird, who is a researcher at the University of Washington on disinformation. And she's mentioned in both articles. And, she thought she was doing the right thing, tracking down the source of deadly lies that killed 500,000 Americans, the COVID lies, and also almost led to the overthrow of the U.S. government, January 6th, and all the stuff around that. Where did these lies come from, she wanted to know. And she's not alone in this. There's a whole bunch of researchers. She was the one that was profiled in the Washington Post. But little did she realize when she started this research into something that, makes perfectly reasonable sense, that the very people whose behavior she was studying would use the power of government to try to destroy her work, stop her funding, and even try to destroy her personal life and her reputation. And not just hers. Right across the board. What we see now is there are lawsuits coming out of a couple of right-wing groups affiliated with the Trump administration. We're seeing Jim Jordan, who is the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, has subpoenaed a number of these groups. He's subpoenaing reporters. He's subpoenaing people who are involved in research into disinformation, lies, misinformation. And of course, you get a subpoena from him, and in many cases he's subpoenaing, quote, all emails, correspondence, tweets, social media, everything going back to 2015. Now just imagine, you get a thing, you're sitting at home and a sheriff comes up and says, here, you've been subpoenaed. And the subpoena says that you've got to turn over to Jim Jordan's committee every email that might even peripherally touch upon any of these topics or any correspondence with other people who are investigating these topics for the last 2015, 8 years?
We're gonna watch this whole thing because it's all gold. But there's your answer. It's one political party that's doing this. It has always been one political party that is doing this. I'm not saying Democrats are angels here. Or ever, frankly. They are also self-serving. But this is different. You got to recognize it. Now, just like there are some people, there are some social media accounts, there are some newscasters who can take actions that disqualify them from being worthy of your trust ever again, so too can a political party. I'll spoil what you can do on this. Show this to people that have ever voted Republican or will ever vote Republican again, according to their own word, and stress to them, Republicans are not worthy of their vote. We got to get rid of all of them. There has to be no more Republican Party. I'm talking about Republican politicians. They got to go. It's a criminal organization, and the things that they do that aren't technically crimes are immoral and are designed to deceive the American people and are poisonous. They're dangerous. Ask them why it is their party wants to keep them ignorant. Now, I'm sure Jim Jordan, when questioned about this, will point fingers and make some wild accusations about the folks investigating the source of disinformation. But at the end of the day, if the truth was on his side, he'd have no fear of it. He would welcome such an investigation. point this out to them, this Tom Hartman clip, and just ask them, do you acknowledge that this party is not worthy of your trust? Because you just have to. You have to. When faced with this is one of those things. I mean, frankly, after January 6th, that is the point where all Trump conversations need to go and halt. As in, we always bring it back there and say, look, Donald Trump tried a coup. He couldn't prove his case in court. Nothing that this guy says he can do justifies you voting for him. We cannot move on. We will not move on in any sort of talk until you come to peace with this reality. Similarly, with the Republican Party, this right chomp. They're trying to keep you ignorant. That means that they think if you knew the truth, you wouldn't support them. And that is all you need to know. That's it. There's no point in having a nuanced conversation about them. It's this right here. Let's hear what the man has to say.
Could you even do that? And Jim Jordan is threatening to put people in jail, in prison, if they refuse to, if they don't comply rapidly enough. And the effect of this has been to completely intimidate people. I mean, they're going after interns, they're going after students who are working on these projects, they're obviously going after professors. Why are they doing this? Well, it's for a very obvious reason in my mind. The Republican Party used to call themselves the party of ideas. Remember this back in the 80s? If you're old enough, you remember this, the Reagan administration. We're the party of new ideas. We've got some great new ideas. Unions are actually they're driving down wages on workers, the Republicans said. I mean, it was a lie, but people bought it. Union bosses are corrupt and they're enriching themselves. Well, that's a lie. Union bosses are paid a salary. It's not like they're CEOs who make money if the stock goes up, right? These were just lies. Voter fraud is caused by black people in the cities, and we got to crack down on those cities in order to stop. Another lie, a demonstrable lie. Climate change is not caused by fossil fuels. It's a natural, it's sunspots and stuff. Another lie. I mean, they're still promulgating these lies, right? Many of them go back to the 80s and Paul Ryan and his new ideas. But, public school teachers are part of a union-based communist conspiracy. Gays, lesbians, and trans people want to convert your kids. Teaching American history injures white children. Cutting taxes on billionaires helps average people. These are all lies. These are Republican lies. COVID is like the flu and the vaccine is dangerous. Expanding Medicare or regulating big pharma will break our healthcare system. Russia didn't help Trump. The media has a liberal bias. Public schools have failed. Abortions and birth control cause cancer, infertility, and regret. January 6th wasn't a traitorous coup attempt. This is the universe of Republican lies, and there's probably others that I've missed here, and feel free to call me. In fact, I'll go in and edit my article and add them in.
So basically, everything that Republicans say to get you fired up, everything Republicans say to get people to support the things that they want to do, which, coincidentally, help the already rich get richer. That either distract you, burn out your energy, or give lefties a fight that they must fight, so that a conservative, let's rag on some conservative Democrats. A conservative like Joe Manchin can sneak into the debt ceiling agreement, more fossil fuel benefits. The very fact that global warming is now killing Americans, and they've got a bunch of you out there passionately defending the idea that it doesn't even exist. That's why they do it. And why do they then harass people who are trying to find the source of these lies? To protect the source of these lies. To stop them from being seen as lies. Because they want to keep lying to the American people. The question, which Thom Hartmann is going to depressingly answer, is why Jim Jordan is not under arrest. And I got some hope for you here. I slightly disagree with Hartmann here. I think we accept the framing we've been given, and I've learned, hey, MAGA, I'm watching you, and I don't disagree with all of it. I've learned from you. I've learned that we do not have to accept that framing. But let's hear what Thom Hartmann has to say. Why is Jim Jordan not under arrest?
But these are the big ones, in my opinion. The big, 10 or 15 Republican lies. And now we've got some researchers, credible university groups and the German Marshall Fund and the University of Washington and others who are looking into where did these lies come from and how do they get spread. And Jim Jordan is doing everything he can to stop that research. And he's being effective. He's being successful. The New York Times had one professor say, I won't even talk to you on the record. I'm afraid for my family.
I appreciate that you gotta look out for your family. And I'm not going to harp on this person too bad because, hey, I'm not in that situation. But this era requires courage. And somebody who won't talk on the record, somebody who will allow villains to go on with their villainy because the villainy worked. They ought not to be able to look themselves in the mirror ever again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Professor, that you got scared by some scary folks. And I acknowledge its danger. It's unacceptable to let these people win. You doom us all to save yourself. And that is the very core of the problem. Sorry you were put in that position. But you also put us all in a position where we go on suffering. And the next professor will be in a worse position. Because the people that you should have taken down by telling the truth will have further solidified their power, will have gotten more brown shirts. This era requires courage. I'm sorry that's a fact, but that's a fact.
People have been doxxed, they've been swatted, they've been outed, they've been harassed. Kate Starbird had deleted her Twitter account, which had 50,000 followers, because she was, being stalked, cyber stalked. This is, well, as William Shirer said, the historian who lived his first few years, or not his first few years, he lived in Germany through the first few years of the Hitler regime, and then left Germany and went on to write The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which is, the seminal narrative of history of the Third Reich. He wrote, in Nazi parlance, educated meant intimidated, to a point where all would accept docilely the Nazi dictatorship and its barbarism. Well, the MAGA wing of the Republican Party is devoted to education in this context. And the reason that they can pull it off with Jim Jordan doing this is because the Article 6 of the Constitution says that he can't be held to account. This was the exact same, it says, members of Congress shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and they shall not be questioned in any other place. In other words, Jim Jordan can do anything he wants, and nobody can stop him. He has immunity. This was the exact same immunity that was used in the 1950s by Senator McCarthy. Drunken Senator McCarthy, we should add. Joe, good old, tail gunner Joe, they called him, because he pretended to be this was his campaign thing, taking pictures in the gunning tail of I think it was a B-25. So, they can't do anything. People can't stop them. They can't stop him. As the Washington Post reported earlier this month, quote, the pressure has forced some researchers to change their approach or step back, even as disinformation.
Nonsense. Of course we can stop them. In all cases, except what did he say? Treason, felony, or breach of the peace. We start taking stochastic terrorism seriously. We cite the examples of a college professor who's unwilling to give an interview because he's afraid for his family's safety. We cite this account that had 50,000 followers shutting down because of stochastic terrorism, because of people out there harassing over political opinions. Misinformed ones at that. We start taking this seriously, that's a breach of the peace. You might even say that's a felony. But it requires us to treat it as such and to demand that it be treated as such. We have been passive for my entire existence. The American people, from what I've seen, are not what we pretend to be when other countries are peaked and when we talk to each other in our safe little hovels. We are timid, easily led sheep. That's our nature, because that's what we've been told is right and decent, and that's a lie. We should be what we pretend to be. We should be, frankly, hard to please. In the VOD, there will be a link. Contact the DOJ. I'll provide a script. I want Jim Jordan under arrest. I encourage you to tell them the same thing. Does it seem drastic? Yeah. Because we've been told that the right and decent thing is to sit down and be quiet while our betters endanger our lives and keep us, our children, and our grandchildren ignorant of their crimes. Enough. And you know what? It doesn't match the letter of the law. If Popak or Kirshner comes on and says, well, this technically isn't right because there's a clause that says, I don't give a damn. Please us. Settle us down, DOJ. Whatever we have set up here as a group of people living in close proximity to each other, whatever we've set up here clearly doesn't work. So tell you what, smart Alex, who are in charge of reading the law and understanding the law, enforcing the law, you find out which laws you will apply in order to please us, in order to ensure our safety. And if they don't exist, write them. And if you're unable to do that, understand that you're going to keep hearing from us. Yes, you're going to suffer the horrible fate of strongly worded emails, not threats, strongly worded emails, perhaps protests. But I'll tell you this, what is not going to happen is we're not going to sit around and wait for the nooses to be draped around our necks. We're not going to file up and calmly walk into the slaughterhouse. Write the DOJ. Tell them Jim Jordan is a danger to the American people. And the reason you should do that is because Jim Jordan is a danger to the American people. Let's see what y'all have to say. Christy Zilkowski, always consider the source is what Nana told me. So yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly like your Nana. Wireless Mike, my grandfather used to tell me, don't believe anything you hear, only a quarter of what you read and only half of what you see. Oh, that's good. I like that. Christy Zilkowski, verify, then trust. Yeah. Yeah. Turning around the old trust but verify from Mars Falcon there. Oh, thank you, Christy. That's why channels like this are vital. Their plan only works if everyone stays uninformed and afraid. 100%. And yes, Rex Trek, complicit. Totally agree. Domenico, Jake for the win. Thank you. Mars Falcon Slaughterhouse 5 is the best slaughterhouse if you have to go. Yeah, I can't argue with that one. Well, I'll tell you what. We so often hear about this stuff, and then we don't follow up with like a direct consequence. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's talk about a direct consequence that happens when let me just use a random example, almost as though I have a clip set up. What happens when you go 30 years passively waiting for these folks to do something? And I'll give you a hint. It's dangerous. Well, what happens when you're infinitely patient, when you always believe the folks that say they're here working for us behind the scenes? Meanwhile, you have half of the government straight up lying about reality. What is the consequence? You know, sometimes, yes, it's something like January 6th, where it's very interesting, horrifying, sad, nerve-wracking, but interesting. But usually what happens is it's boring. Usually what happens is a couple reports here and there of unusual deaths or somebody with asthma that didn't need it. Or, as Bo of the Fifth Column tells us about, without ever actually mentioning global warming, father and son dying in Texas from heat exhaustion.
Oh, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again.
Howdy, Bo.
So today we are going to talk about the heat and Texas and something that happened that I think everybody needs to be aware of. And just some basic precautions. Okay, so there is a heat wave going on. As of yesterday, by the time y'all watch this, there were, I want to say 10,000 outages in Texas. Heat is dangerous. Heat is dangerous. Don't overexert yourself. There was something that happened in Big Bend in the park out there. A 14-year-old boy hiking with, I want to say, his older brother and his father, maybe stepfather. He got weak, got dizzy, became unconscious. His dad ran to get help. The 14-year-old boy did not make it. His dad, in the rush to get assistance, looks like he crashed his vehicle. He also did not make it. The temperatures were about 119 degrees that day. So that's what the reporting is saying at this time. They don't have all of the information yet on what happened, but given the extreme temperatures, was probably a factor.
All right, so obviously, in my mind, this is a global warming story. But let's be clear. I'm sure this was not the hottest day ever in Texas. But that's kind of why I want to talk about this. And I love the way Bo talks about it. I'm sure Bo at no point in this actually discusses global warming. But see, that's just it. We're going to have more and more days like this. We're going to have the kind of weather people aren't used to. And that's huge. And Bo will go on in a moment to explain why that's huge. But I want to draw the line and highlight it and underline it and take a picture of it and blow it up and hang it on the wall. This is why it's dangerous. Global warming killing people is not going to take the form of somebody with a shirt that says global warming on it, kicking in the door and stabbing you to death. It's going to be an unusually snowy day in December, where a community that is used to only ever getting a couple inches of snow all year suddenly gets 6 inches of snow in a day. A freak storm, they'll call it. And a bunch of people will go outside and try to shovel it so they can get to work, and a couple of them will have a heart attack. It's going to take the form of a flood in a community that's not prepared for it, and the power gets knocked out for an extended amount of time. Somebody eats some spoiled meat, and they die from that. It's not going to be fascinating, but it's going to be frequent. This week, it took the form of a father and son dying from heat they were not prepared for in Texas.
There is an attitude that basically, well, it'll be all right. I can handle it. Interesting little fact. You know what happens at 90 degrees on military bases? A black flag goes up and everything stops. No strenuous activity outdoors. It stops. At 88 degrees, a red flag is up, and that is limited strenuous activity, with the exception of those who haven't become acclimated yet. I want to say it's 12 weeks. They require you to be there in the local weather because it's different everywhere. The heat here in Florida is very different than the heat in Texas. So it affects people differently. There's also another flag at, I want to say it's 85 degrees, which I think is, I want to say it's limited or maybe even halted for those who haven't been acclimated for 3 weeks. Being acclimated to the local weather, super important. The heat is a killer. The heat is a killer. So, if you are in this area, particularly if you're in an area that has been affected by outages, make sure you take care of yourself. You stay cool, you stay hydrated, but also check on those people around you, particularly those who may have more issues due to the heat, those who are much older, much younger. Make sure that they are cool, make sure they are hydrated.
And don't worry about your old pal Jake, because he's always cool. Look, it's sad. And what I ask you to do, the only thing I ask you to do, the only thing I have to add on to the tale of this is that part of the danger of global warming is exactly what Bo was bringing up at the end there. Whole regions are going to get hit with weather patterns that they are not acclimated to. And it's going to happen more and more frequently. If we do everything right starting now, it's still going to happen more and more frequently, just less so. And we're not going to do everything right. And we're going to have to suffer more before people concede this. If you want to save the planet, the best thing you can do is vote in the primaries in 2024 and then vote blue no matter who in 2024, because the Democrats are going to be the people that we need to pressure to make this happen. In the meantime, as Bo of the Fifth Column was pointing out there, keep an eye on those you got to keep an eye on. Somebody is vulnerable to this sort of thing, be aware of it. Help them out if they need it. And if somebody is open, or you see an opportunity to bring this up, so if somebody's open to the conversation, or you see just an opportunity to mention this, stress that this is what the early consequences of global warming looks like. You want a more dramatic example? Show them pictures of New York. But this is it. This is going to be the margins where the deaths start cropping up. John Bailey. Jim Jordan has no moral compassion. Yes, wholeheartedly agree. Mars Falcon. Spent 20 years in Tejas, never acclimated. Once the temperature hit the high 80s, I was in hell, and I grew up with multiple weeks of 105 plus temps every summer in Northern California. It was that sick humidity. Yeah, Texas heat, man. I've heard about it. I've just heard about it. And that was enough for me to say a firm no thank you. I'm a northern boy. I come from the land of the ice and snow. I think your old pal Jake went down there. I may actually turn into a beat. Went to Vegas but one time and crawled back. I feel you. And kudos to you for making it for a full 2 decades. But no thank you on that. Well, folks, it is a 2 for Tuesday, which means I got to get the second stream ready. I appreciate you joining me today. If you enjoyed the stream, hit the like button. It surely does help. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake, and I'll see you in the next one. Mumbai. Good God, John Bailey. Interesting.